So this community is currently made up of 7 implementation projects at 7 different institutions. They include Georgia State University, who's represented up here, University of Central Oklahoma, University of Missouri St. Louis. Hello, everyone. We're all here. University of New Mexico, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and the University of Texas at El Paso. This morning, we're going to hear about 2 of those projects, and they're going to give you a little bit about how they, in their own institutions, are sort of personalizing this work to the needs of their students, their faculty, and their communities. We're going to start with Cindy Gutierrez, who will discuss the project at the University of Colorado, Denver. Cindy is the Director of Urban Teacher Community Education at UCD. And then we're going to move on to Deshonda Peterson and Gwen Williams, who will discuss the TLINC project at Georgia State University. Deshonda Patterson is the Director of GSU's Network for Enhancing Teacher Quality, and Gwen Williams is the Project Coordinator for NetQ, which is, again, the acronym for the Network for Enhancing Teacher Quality. So I'm just going to hand it over to Cindy. Thank you.
Sounds great. So I represent like the old timer up here. I think we're one of the original institutions that started with TLINC back in 2006. And one of the things that I've loved about this opportunity to be part of TLINC's work and working with NCTAF is taking a page out of what you stated from Kajit. They've allowed us to have untethered opportunities to play and innovate and try to figure out really what works. And so that's been pretty foundational to what we do. And I know that the other huge piece of this is it's allowed me to get to interact and connect and collaborate with all of the different TLINC institutions where we've continually learned from one another. So it's been extremely supportive from that. So many of the ideas that we've put into place at UCD certainly have come and been spawned by ongoing collaborations here at NCTAF. What I want to do is quickly just kind of give you some context about who we are at UCD, because I think that always matters. We're all playing in different contextual backgrounds, and it really has influenced, though, the way that we have tried to implement TLINC. A little bit about us. We are a research-intensive urban university. And interestingly enough, about 6 years ago, we were thrown into this status when our campus was merged with our Health Sciences Center. So that's been fascinating to figure out how to make this work in what you talked about, what are the levers of what counts for tenure and promotion, and having to figure that out. We are completely focused on urban teacher preparation, and that is our entire program for everybody that comes to us. We are called Urban Community Teacher Education. We are primarily a graduate program, so we really attract a lot of career changers, people who already have a bachelor's degree that as closely as possible matches the area that they're going into, and we primarily focus just on their teacher training portion. About 6 or 7 years ago, we did get into the undergraduate business, and that's really developing pretty quickly and even more intensely with some new rule changes in Colorado for us. But you can see here the different areas that we prepare in. And at any one time, we're supporting about 300 teacher candidates in our program. The other thing that is huge for us is that I have been extremely privileged and lucky to be able to come into continue to lead and direct a program that has been highly collaborative in its development from the get-go. We are have one of the longest historical partnerships in a professional development school network. We started professional development schools in 1993, so we're coming up on year 20 of this work, and have been extraordinarily fortunate that we continue to have leadership at the university that supports this, because it's not a cheap model to go with, but it's been huge. We also, about 3 years ago, when we went through a massive redesign of our program, we went to an all cohort-based model of teacher preparation, where our teacher candidates are admitted into a cohort of about 25 to 30 students that they travel the entire program with. So that in and of itself really sets them up for significant collaboration from the get-go. I recently had a teacher candidate who's in the middle of the program say, "Do we ever get to do anything on our own?" And I said, "No, we've designed it this way for a reason." The other aspect of this is that because of our professional development schools, not only are they part of a larger program cohort that goes through all the university coursework together, but they're also part of collaborative learning communities in the way that they are deployed and actually selected by the professional development schools who support their year-long residency. And so they're out there with 6 to 10 other teacher candidates as a collaborative learning community in those schools where they will live the life of a teacher for an entire year as they're being prepared. We also have an extensive focus from, I think, our faculty's perspective on integrated preparation. So we think there's an awful lot more in common to preparing really highly effective urban teachers, no matter what their track is, than there is separate, because we know that all teachers have to be able to collaborate highly effectively out there. So we have a very integrated approach to being able to prepare special education teachers right alongside general education teachers. A highly integrated approach to really thinking about what is the most effective pedagogical approaches to supporting English language learners. And that really pushes on our faculty to have to become highly collaborative because they're extraordinarily skilled in their expertise area. But because our curriculum is such that it's highly integrated all the way across, they have to become pretty collaborative and skilled collectively to be able to provide this very coherent journey for our teacher candidates. And then the other thing that we did in our redesign a few years ago is we went, at least on the teacher preparation side of the coursework, we went to an all blended delivery model. So our coursework is being delivered 50% face-to-face and 50% in an online learning community experience. And we're kind of at the mercy of our university of whatever course management tools they're using, but that's really pushed our faculty to have to think, how do they translate really effective pedagogy in an online environment? And we want our students to experience that because we, too, have that same vision that we're not that far away, that K-12 teachers are going to be delivering their instruction this way. The way that we think, I first heard Tom speak about a little over a year ago about this term educator development, and it's one that I've been using for a while now since I heard him talk about that. So this is the way we think about it at UCD and our professional development school network. At the center of our world is the same concept that's at the center of the K-12 world, P-12 world. And that if we do not have P-12 student achievement and growth at the center of the way that we think about everything that we do, then it doesn't matter, because that's really the outcome that matters. We want to try to be at the table to push how you talk about that, not so much just in a test score or those sorts of things. So that was part of my question earlier, but that's at the center of our world. And the way that we do that is we collaborate in lots of different ways to make that happen. The first thing we do is we collaborate all about high quality urban teacher education. And we do that with over 24 professional development schools across 6 metro area districts in Denver. And that sometimes becomes really interesting. It's like in-laws within laws within laws. So it's pretty interesting. The other thing that we think a lot about is about this notion of flexible, differentiated professional learning for all educators. One of the things that we're really pushing on right now is that not all teachers need the same thing all at the same time. And that's typically because of limited budgets and those sorts of things. That's what's being provided to them in their districts. And so how do we, through our professional development school network, think about that very differently? How do we let teachers drive what they need and what they want to learn? Another huge element that we are pushing on is this notion of research and innovation directed at the improvement of educator effectiveness and student learning. And we're really playing around in this in some grants that we've gone after, some new roles in our partnership network for tenure track faculty only, and really thinking about how can that look different. And then finally, that one of the major outcomes that we hope happens constantly is the simultaneous renewal of university practices and systems, as well as school practices and systems, so that we're constantly renewing each other. So I want to just feature real quickly some of the ways that this is happening, and a lot of these have stemmed from our work with TLINC. At the teacher prep level, one of the ways that we've really pushed on our work is for our professional development schools. Every single one of those schools has its own EdWeb online community. Our teacher candidates need to have on-demand access because they're living in both worlds. They're out at their schools, they're at the university. They're at their schools, they're at the university. And they need to be able to access a community with their collaborative learning community cohort of peers, as well as the faculty that we put out there. We have a site professor who's out there every single week dedicated to that group of teacher candidates in that particular school. We also have a site coordinator who's kind of a teacher leader in that building who also helps mentor that cohort. So they form their own collaborative learning community, and they use EdWeb as a really powerful way to do that, and supports reflection and access to documents. They co-create things together, those kinds of ideas. The other thing that we've tried to push on this notion of, we recognize that even in teacher prep programs, even though they're supposed to be part of the digital age, you could still put all of our teacher candidates on this massive continuum of digital natives to digital immigrants. So we're trying to leverage and harness the energy and the ideas of some of our teacher candidates who are really our digital natives and who are experimenting already and who already have their own personal learning networks and all those sorts of things. And we've given them a formal title called TC EdWeb Leaders. And they really take on the role of leading facilitation in those EdWeb communities. And now with the mobile devices, they're out there also getting their own PDs. They're kind of a select group where we're doing PD with them on 21st century learning skills with the mobile devices. In terms of flexible differentiated professional learning in our schools and our professional development school network, we've launched something new this year. Another term we kind of took from NICTAF is what we're calling our PDS Learning Studio. And this is not a place, it's really an idea of this notion of how do you help the practicing educators that are out there really try to drive their own professional learning. And what we have is we have different EdWeb communities that are supporting clinical teachers and faculty. So one of the elements that we have is we have one EdWeb community that's very specific just to the role of what does it mean to be a clinical teacher. That's the other word that we use for cooperating teacher. And it's totally framed around a teacher leadership framework, and it allows teachers from across the entire city to be able to engage in highly meaningful professional development without needing to get a sub, without needing to drive an hour across the city to get somewhere face-to-face for us here at the university. And it really allows them to not only become a better clinical teacher, but then start to look at their own practice in very inquiry-based ways. And that what that will serve as the sort of jumping off platform to is to be able to then go into driving some of their own learning. So we're going to be offering new aspects of teacher study teams across the partnership. We're going to be offering teacher action research groups, kind of a model off of what GSU's done before. So different ways that we're trying to support them. And then finally, research and innovation. About a year ago, several of us wrote a national professional development grant through the Office of English Language Acquisition. And this is leveraging our TLINC work into the work of finding a way to really support online learning communities to support academic language learning in math and science. And so this has been fascinating, where we're really developing content that can be delivered through an online learning community for our school partners to make that happen. We're also going to be kind of deploying with a small group of teachers who are going to really research and innovate with us the use of iPad systems to collect video of their own practice and engage in learning labs together, again, mediated through online learning communities. So this is the way that we've tried to continue to support this work.
Great. Hi, I'm Deshonda Patterson from Georgia State. As Sophie mentioned earlier, I'm the project director for the Network for Enhancing Teacher Quality, and I'm also a clinical assistant professor in the Department of Educational Psychology and Special Education. And Gwen Williams and I work together on our project. Our project is multifaceted. We have a number of institutions that partner with us. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to give you a little bit of context about who all the key players happen to be and what are some of the key features of our project. And then we're going to spend some time talking about some of the features of the project as they're implemented at the universities that we represent on behalf of the project. So the Network for Enhancing Teacher Quality is a large TQP, like many of you have teacher quality partnership grants. And one of the key elements of our project is our teacher residency. And as Cindy mentioned, our students experience year-round or year-long internships. I think Rick was talking earlier about how important it is for our candidates to see what it feels like to open school and to close school in 1 year. And certainly the research that are being published now are really supporting the efficacy of this practice and the value that this provides to our candidates and the level of preparation that they feel when they get into the field as the teacher of record. In addition to our residency, we have partnerships with other universities. So Georgia State is sort of the mothership of our project. And Albany State University, which is a rural school in southern Georgia, is another one of our partners, as well as Columbus State and Georgia Perimeter and Clark Atlanta University. So we have a number of institutions of higher education who participate with us. However, Albany State University and Georgia State Universities are the two that have the residency programs in place. Our teacher residents are placed in in the schools in one of our 6 partner districts, and we have about 22 schools. Very similar to Cindy, it feels like we're matches of each other from across the country. We have about 22 partner schools, P through 12, and we work with mentor teachers in those environments, cooperating teachers or mentor teachers, to support those candidates throughout the year. Our focus is on special education, math, and science. Our math and science candidates alternate every other year. So this year we're in a math year, next year we'll be in a science year. And again, that's to be responsive to the needs that we see in terms of what the market needs. And right now we need science and math teachers who are very highly qualified. And so that's our draw. We have a lot of career changers, as Cindy mentioned, folks who come to us with undergraduate degrees in other fields. In our department, particularly special education, we don't have an undergraduate program. So all of our students are graduate level students. Similarly, in the math and science program, most of our students are graduate students there as well. So we find it necessary to help them learn the pedagogy and also understand the culture and the quirks that exist in public education, which can be tricky. In addition, because we have career changers, we have folks who come to us from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of ages, a variety of previous experiences, which are wonderful and provide us a very rich tapestry of students who participate with us. Our residents receive a living stipend of $25,000, which tries to help us attract folks from the field. It's not much, but it certainly is an incentive for those folks who are interested in changing careers, but maybe have families or have obligations that prevent them from being a full-time student without any type of financial support. And that living stipend does come with a service obligation. So we ask that those students teach in a high needs area for 3 years to meet that service obligation, and then to let them walk away from their requirement to pay back that money free and clear. And so far, we've had a really good placement rate in terms of the folks who've graduated. About, I'd say 95% of the people that we've graduated in our first 2 cohorts have found employment and continue to stay there a year in the field. This is our 3rd cohort, so we've only had 2 cohorts who finished. So our first cohort, they're in their 2nd year, and almost all of them are still in the field. And then of our 2nd cohort, this is their 1st year out, and all of them, and some of them were hired before they graduated. So we've definitely gotten a lot of positive feedback from our partners. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the particulars in our programs, and I'll let Gwen talk about some of the things that are happening down in Albany.
All right. What we have focused on in Albany has been a focus on building a professional identity. We felt like that was important because the teachers that I work with the community, with the professors at Albany, are 6 teachers that we work with. And for all 6 of them, this is the first time that they have been to college. So we were trying to ward off some of the things that happen once they go to classrooms, as I think Tom talked about earlier, that once they get in the classroom and they feel like they're overwhelmed. They have these teachers now that don't know how to deal with classroom management, and all these things are just coming at them, and all of a sudden they're ready to go. So we have been focusing on making them aware of what a professional identity is all about. And they have discovered for themselves how the personal and the professional blurs. And what we have found out is when we were trying to just as a group of faculty members, we looked at some of the research and we found out that there was really not a whole lot in the research about how identity formation is concentrated on in teacher residency programs for sure, because there isn't hardly any information there. And also in the early programs, there's information there when teachers begin their careers and throughout their careers, but there wasn't anything there to really help teachers think about what should their professional identity be? How should I look at myself as a teacher? Why did I become a teacher? These are the things that we're focusing on with these 6 teachers consistently. Why are you here? What's the reason that you really want to become a teacher? Why do you feel like you need to really work with these high needs children? And one thing that has come out for us is that they're saying that they're learning that you really have to love the teachers, the students that you teach. You got to love them in order to be able to just really be able to work with them well. So our partnership, we began the partnership with cross-career learning communities. And that's our version of working with some of the protocols from the School Reform Initiative. And one of the ones that we worked on when we first started out during the summer was the World Cafe. And with that particular protocol, these are some of the questions that we began with in order to build community. First question was, why am I here? What or who have I left behind or undone? What is this learning community experience about? What does it mean to be a part of a learning community? What would it look, feel like, and sound like in your school if everyone considered themselves to be a learner? Now, this was one question that really just, sparked a lot of discussion. If everybody was a learner, everybody starting out the same place, and everybody is there together in a collaborative fashion and learning together. So this is one of the points that we use, one of the guiding posts that we use when we come together for all of our meetings, that we're all learning together. That I as the liaison from Georgia State, the 2 faculty members from Albany State, and these 6 teacher residents, that we all are learning together. That we're doing this in a collaborative fashion. We know that this teacher transformation is continuously unfolding. And we're building this mentorship at meetings, and we realize that mentoring is about inspiring others to become motivated to achieve in a space where responsibility for achieving goes beyond the personal to collaboration and inclusiveness. We, the teachers, are in what we call this cross-generational learning culture. We have the monthly meetings, and I talk with the team members once a week. We have a weekly conference call where we're talking about what the teachers are learning on EdWeb. They're really excited about EdWeb. We're talking about that. We also are talking about the research that we're asking the teachers to do as part of the program, because we're asking them to collect data. We're asking them to find out what is it that's helping you become a more effective teacher. You're using the technology, using the devices. So what is it that you're using, and what strategies are you using in science and your math that's helping students be able to learn better? Shayla, who's one of the teacher residents that I'm going to focus on just a little bit, she has talked about some of the problems that have come out for her as a teacher. And one of the three main ones have been trying to write effective lesson plans, because now they're dealing with the Common Core. So how do I write an effective lesson plan to be able to do this when she only plans with her mentor teacher twice per week? The other thing that's coming out that we talk about at our meetings, or classroom management. That's still another problem for them. The third one is trying to negotiate that space and time with their mentor so they don't feel uncomfortable. What she says she's learned from her mentor about classroom management are just several strategies that are now helping her. For example, one of them has been where they actually, everybody in the classroom, all the students in the classrooms, can reward each other when they ask a really good critical question. And I said, well, how did you learn to do that? She said, we've been practicing using critical questions. So all the students are tuned into that. So I thought that was really good for them to be focused on that kind of thing. And at the end of the week, they get some kind of reward, but that's built into what they're doing. Then another one is just trying to find the time. She says, we're trying to figure out now how we can help her with good chunks of time to plan with her mentor. It's not in place at the school, but we're just trying to work with her so that she can just ask the kind of questions that she needs to ask to plan more effective lessons. And I think that's what's been good about this particular collaboration, is that she has us at the college level just to be able to help her be able to think through what she needs to be able to do in order to get the kind of support that she needs. And one thing I asked her is, how do you know when you've taught something to a student and it's effective? And she said, when I teach a concept in my lesson that sparks a memory. So I said, oh, okay, when it sparks a memory. Then she went on to tell us how students act this out in classrooms. The best part of her particular year has been working with, she said, the Qualcomm devices. She wished she had more because she only has this one device. But she's able to work with students in small groups with the device. And what we're trying to focus on more is how to connect the new apps that they're learning to the lessons that they're teaching. So this is what they're doing, constantly coming back to us. And so we keep pushing back on us. Well, how does this connect? You got a new app and you're excited about the app, but then what does it do? What does it actually help the students be able to do? Are they able to think better? Are they able to think about this, to be able to use it in more inquiring ways to help them with projects? So this is what we keep pushing back in order to be able to help them be able to think. And then finally, one of the main points we're trying to help these new teacher residents is to become more scholars, so that they are using this data as one of the built-in drivers, that they're looking at how they are actually helping their students be able to learn. So they're using, all of them are posing technology questions. For Shayla, her question was, does the use of technology increase engagement of students in middle grade science and math? So this is what she's trying to do constantly. She's trying to find out how her increasing her knowledge and then sharing what she's learning with her students so that they become better students.
And at Georgia State, we have a similar model. We have our students participate in, they're in their schools 4 days a week in the fall, and they come to the university one day for a professional development where we integrate some professional development based on topics that we know that they're interested in or needs that aren't necessarily covered in their coursework, as well as they take courses during that day. So it's a very similar model to the one that Rick mentioned, and that's the national model for teacher residencies that we use. And we didn't always use that model, I'd like to say. Last year, in the first 2 years of our program, we didn't, and we learned that our students were just so overwhelmed and they weren't getting as much of the critical information that they could have, that were going to prepare them to work in schools that might differ from some of the schools in which they did their residency programs. So we were able to talk about some issues that might emerge in other places where they might not necessarily be getting a hands-on experience, but we know of some of the challenges, some of the issues that they might be facing, and bring folks from those communities in to talk about, how do you work with families? How are we working with refugee and immigrant populations? How are we working with families of children who are raised by people who aren't their parents, but might be multi-generational families? So these are some of the things that we're able to cover during that day that they're not in their placements. In addition, we've worked more diligently to create a clear model for how we support our mentors. And I think someone talked about training facilitators in the true environment in which they're going to be facilitating the information. And we've done the same thing with our mentors. So we have this website. We probably don't have time to go to it now, but it's called mentormodules.com. It was developed by a faculty member at Georgia State in collaboration with Georgia Public Broadcasting. And this is a free website that's accessible to anyone who'd like to use it. And it has several modules that are designed to help prepare teachers who are planning to be cooperative teachers to be mentors. These modules are aligned with the standards in Georgia for being a TSS or a teacher support specialist, which is someone who's allowed to be a mentor, but also with induction standards as well. So these are modules that are free to use. They have real life cases, video, reflection questions, and those types of things. In addition, we use cross-career learning communities as well, which is modeled, as Gwen said, off of critical friendship groups. And one of the things that we've started this year during the residents' time on campus is that we've developed our own critical friendship group or our own cross-career learning community. And our residents have found that to be a very helpful forum for them to solve dilemmas of practice, professional teaching challenges, and those kinds of things. And they're viewing themselves more as a professional learning community that they can come back to and process, not just when we're with them, but we found that they're doing this on their own. The use of the devices has been critical to our partners in Albany because there's such distance between the schools and between the residents that they're actually utilizing their devices to facilitate professional learning communities and CCLC groups when they're not together. And we're encouraging our residents to do that in the urban area, in Georgia State, in the urban area. And finally, as I wind down, we try to provide induction support to our alumni. And we do that through encouraging them to come back. I think Rick mentioned that when the students go, they're like, we don't want to see you anymore. Why are you calling us? Why are you emailing us? You let us go. But they've realized how much of a resource that we are to them and that they are to us and to our current students. And so they have started to form. As much as we've tried, it turned out that they organically produced these learning communities that were kind of happening behind the scenes that we didn't know about. And so, but they've been very effective. So we do provide formalized induction support to our students, but they also create their own induction pipelines for each other. So those are just a few examples of some of the things that we're doing at our university. Happy to entertain any questions.